I ran into Layla at a corporate gala. She was deep in thought, her raven hair falling to reveal an elegant neck. Despite being surrounded by a crowd of clinking glasses and mingling executives, she seemed to create an invisible barrier of isolation around herself. She was conspicuously eye-catching. After 10 years apart, she seemed even colder than before. Her gaze towards others was like frost on glass, cutting and distant. Perhaps only when she looked at certain business partners did that frost melt into something resembling warmth. She didn't notice me at first. She simply lowered her eyes with a hint of impatience, sensing someone staring at her. "That's Layla Chen," a colleague whispered beside me. "Came back from abroad and took over her family's tech empire. I heard she's an Oxford graduate. Made quite an impression on the board of directors. Definitely not just another rich kid with connections." He winked with a suggestive smile. "Pretty, right? A lot of guys are after her. Want an introduction?" I didn't respond as memories of Layla flooded my mind. 17-year-old Layla had skin so pale it was almost translucent in the sunlight, her eyes always with a hint of a smile, and her voice as soothing as a spring breeze. "Marcus, let's go to Oxford together," she had said. It was a distant memory now, almost forgotten or buried. But suddenly it felt as clear as if it were yesterday. I set my drink down and softly said, "No, it's fine. Let's go." At that moment, Layla's gaze swept across the room and then abruptly fixed on me. She was stunned, frozen in place for seconds that stretched like hours. Then she pushed through the crowd and started walking briskly toward me, eventually breaking into a run, her heels clicking loudly on the marble floor. "Marcus!" she exclaimed, her voice trembling with disbelief, her eyes suddenly rimmed with tears. I pretended not to see and turned to leave. Layla and I had a standard childhood friendship. Our families were close, and we were born in the same year, practically growing up together. Layla had always been proud, believing that everyone else was beneath her. Since elementary school, the love letters she received would be torn in half and tossed away in front of the boys who sent them. She had the right to be proud. Wealthy family, beautiful appearance, high intelligence. At 3, she began reading Oxford dictionaries, and by 11, she had hacked into her father's company's firewall to obtain confidential documents, which both infuriated and impressed her father. However, she was more restrained around me. Layla never skipped a beat, saying, "You're so dumb. If I don't help you, you'll be doomed." So from elementary school to high school, I would either go to her house or have her come to mine, studying and playing together. She would tap me on the head with a pen, scolding, "Marcus, how many times have I explained this simple problem? Are you dumb?" Under Layla's genius tutoring, I should have smartened up by now. Our grades were always first and second in the class, and we were inseparable. Her mother often joked that we were like siblings, even suggesting we should be arranged for marriage. Every time she said that, I'd blush and remain silent, though I was incredibly happy. Who wouldn't like Layla? She was beautiful, outstanding, and she had a special affection for me. But soon Adrian appeared and everything changed. Now 10 years later, I felt her hand on my arm, stopping me from leaving the gala. "Marcus, please," Layla's voice cracked with emotion. "I can't believe it's really you. I've been searching for you for years." I kept my expression neutral, though my heart was racing. "Ms. Chen, what a surprise." "Ms. Chen." The formal address clearly wounded her. "Marcus, it's me, Layla." "I know who you are," I replied coldly. "I'm just not sure what you want from me after all this time." Her eyes searched mine, looking for some warmth, some sign that I remembered our past. She wouldn't find one. I'd spent 10 years building walls around those memories. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "Please, 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking. I believe we said everything that needed saying 10 years ago." I glanced pointedly at her hand still gripping my arm. She reluctantly released me but didn't back away. "That's not true," she insisted, her composure slipping. "You disappeared before I could—" "Excuse me, is everything all right here?" A tall woman with amber eyes and a fitted burgundy dress appeared at my side. Vanessa Lin, my company's marketing director, slipped her arm through mine with practiced ease. "We're running late for the Chen Richards meeting," Vanessa said to me, then turned a professional smile toward Layla. "I'm sorry, but we really must go. Perhaps you could schedule something with Mr. Wei's assistant." Before Layla could respond, Vanessa was already guiding me toward the exit. I allowed myself to be led away, ignoring the weight of Layla's gaze on my back. "Friend of yours?" Vanessa asked once we were outside. "No," I said firmly. "Just someone I used to know." As the car pulled away from the curb, I caught a glimpse of Layla standing alone at the entrance, her composed facade completely shattered. For a moment, I felt a twinge of something. Satisfaction, perhaps, or an echo of the pain I'd carried for a decade. Then I pushed it away and focused on the road ahead. The car ride back to the office was silent. Vanessa kept glancing at me, clearly curious but professional enough not to pry. I stared out the window at the gleaming skyscrapers of Shanghai's financial district, trying to force Layla's face from my mind. You know, Vanessa finally said, breaking the silence, if someone upsets you that much, they're either family or someone you once loved. I turned to look at her, surprised by her perceptiveness. Or both, I replied quietly. She nodded, not pushing further. That was one of the things I appreciated about Vanessa. She knew when to press and when to let things be. Back at my apartment that night, I couldn't sleep. Memories I'd locked away for years kept surfacing, like old photographs floating to the top of murky water. Reluctantly, I got up and retrieved a small wooden box from the back of my closet. Inside was a faded photograph. A boy and girl, about 15, standing in front of a cherry blossom tree. The girl's arm was around the boy's shoulder, her smile brilliant and confident. The boy looked slightly awkward but unmistakably happy. Layla and I had been inseparable since we were 6 years old. Our mothers had been college roommates, and when both families ended up in the same neighborhood in Shanghai, it seemed natural to raise their children together. Layla's family lived in a sprawling mansion with a private garden and live-in staff. My family's apartment, while comfortable, couldn't compare to the Chen's wealth. But Layla never seemed to notice the difference between our circumstances. To her, I was simply Marcus, her best friend and constant companion. Marcus, you're overthinking it again, she would say, watching me struggle with a math problem. Just follow the pattern. It's simple. Nothing was ever difficult for Layla. She possessed the kind of natural brilliance that made everything, studies, sports, social interactions, seem effortless. While other children struggled through primary school, she was already reading advanced texts and solving complex equations. I was different, methodical, persistent, but not naturally gifted. Yet Layla never lost patience with me. She spent countless hours at my kitchen table, explaining concepts over and over until I understood. I'm going to make you brilliant, she declared when we were 12, tapping my forehead with her pencil. Even if I have to personally rewire your brain. Our families joked about us, calling us the little couple. Mrs. Chen would sigh dramatically and say, if only we could arrange marriages like in the old days. These two would be perfect. My mother would laugh along, but I would feel my face burning, because by the time we were 14, what had started as childhood friendship had become something more, at least for me. Layla was beautiful, yes, but it was more than that. She understood me in ways no one else did. She knew when to push me and when to be gentle. She celebrated my successes as if they were her own. I never told her how I felt. The fear of ruining our friendship kept me silent. Besides, Layla seemed content with things as they were, and I didn't want to risk changing that. We had plans, big ones. We would attend Oxford together, then return to China and build something meaningful. Layla would transform her family's stagnant manufacturing business into a tech giant, and I would be by her side, her trusted advisor and partner. The Chenwei Empire, she would say, spreading her arms wide as if embracing a future only she could see clearly. It's going to be magnificent, Marcus. And I believed her. When Layla spoke about the future, it seemed inevitable, as if she could bend reality through sheer force of will. Then came our junior year of high school, and with it, Adrian Zhou. Adrian transferred to our elite international school halfway through the fall semester. Rumors about him spread before he even arrived, expelled from his previous school for fighting, connected to Shanghai's underworld through family ties, dangerously charming. In a school full of well-behaved academic achievers, Adrian was a disruption. He wore his uniform with deliberate carelessness, tie loosened, shirt untucked, a small tattoo visible at his collar. He skipped classes regularly, smoked on school grounds, and treated teachers with casual disrespect. I disliked him immediately, but I wasn't concerned about Layla. She had always dismissed boys who showed interest in her, tearing up love letters without even reading them, and rejecting confessions with almost clinical detachment. They don't actually like me, she explained once. They like the idea of me. It's boring. So when Adrian cornered Layla in the courtyard one afternoon, I watched from a distance, expecting the usual takedown. I saw him lean against the wall beside her, too close, while she continued reading her book, ignoring him. Then he said something that made her look up, and she smiled. It wasn't her polite social smile or her triumphant academic smile. It was something I'd never seen before, a small private curve of her lips that transformed her entire face. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the autumn air. That evening, Layla texted to cancel our study session. Asterisk something came up asterisk, she wrote. Asterisk talk tomorrow. It was the first time in our friendship that she had canceled our plans without explanation. The next day, I saw her walking into school with Adrian, laughing at something he said. He had his arm draped casually around her shoulders, and she wasn't pulling away. I confronted her during lunch break when she was alone for once. What's going on with you and Adrian? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. Layla's eyes brightened in a way that made my stomach twist. He's interesting, Marcus. Different from everyone at this school. He sees the world differently. He's a delinquent, I pointed out, and he's failing 3 classes. That's because school bores him. He's actually brilliant in his own way. She touched my arm. Don't worry, we're still on for Oxford. But things changed rapidly after that. Layla began skipping our study sessions more frequently. Her perfect grades slipped. She started dressing differently, wearing clothes that would have been forbidden by her strict parents. Shorter skirts, makeup she'd never bothered with before. Worst of all, she pulled away from me. Our easy conversations became strained. She checked her phone constantly when we were together, smiling at Adrian's messages. I watched, helpless, as my best friend, the person I'd secretly loved for years, transformed into someone I barely recognized. By midterms, her grades had fallen so drastically that her parents called mine, concerned. Mrs. Chen's voice was tight with worry. Marcus, please talk to Layla. She respects you. This boy she's seeing, he's a bad influence. Her father and I have tried, but she won't listen. I promised to try, though I already knew it would be futile. Layla had made her choice, and it wasn't me. I found her after school, sitting on the steps with Adrian, his motorcycle parked illegally on the sidewalk. She was wearing a leather jacket I'd never seen before, obviously his, and it swallowed her small frame. Layla, can I talk to you for a minute? I asked. Alone? Adrian smirked but stood up. I'll get us coffee, he said, kissing her temple before walking away. The casual intimacy of the gesture felt like a deliberate taunt. What is it, Marcus? Layla asked, her tone impatient. Your parents are worried about you, I said. Your grades are fine, she interrupted. I had one bad test. It's not the end of the world. It's not just one test. You're throwing everything away. Oxford. Oh my God, Oxford. She rolled her eyes. Is that all you care about? The unfairness of the accusation stung. What about what you care about? You've been working toward Oxford since we were kids, and now you're risking it all for what? Some guy you've known for 2 months? Her eyes flashed. Adrian makes me feel alive, Marcus. When I'm with him, I'm not just someone's perfect daughter or the school genius or your sidekick. Sidekick? I repeated, stunned. Is that what you think you are to me? She looked away, suddenly uncertain. I don't know what I am to you anymore. You're my best friend, I said, my voice breaking slightly. You're the most important person in my life. For a moment, something softened in her expression. Then Adrian returned, balancing 2 coffee cups, and the moment shattered. Everything cool? He asked, glancing between us. Layla took the coffee he offered. We're fine. Marcus was just leaving. I stood there, unable to move, feeling like I was losing something precious and being unable to stop it. Actually, Adrian said, setting his coffee down, since you're here, let's clear something up, Way. He stepped closer to me. You've been giving me the stink eye since day one. What's your problem? Adrian, don't, Layla warned. He ignored her. Is it because I'm dating your little study buddy? You two have some kind of arrangement I'm messing up? We're friends, I said stiffly. That's all. Yeah? Because you don't look at her like she's just a friend. His smile was knowing, cruel. But here's the thing. She chose me. So maybe it's time you backed off. Adrian! Layla stood up, grabbing his arm. Stop it. He shrugged her off, still watching me. No, let's settle this. Layla, tell him. Who's it going to be? Your childhood buddy or me? This is ridiculous, she said, but her voice wavered. Choose, Adrian insisted. Right now, him or me. The 3 of us stood frozen in that moment. Adrian challenging, Layla trapped, and me barely breathing, waiting for an answer I already knew but couldn't bear to hear. The silence stretched, broken only by the distant sounds of traffic and other students leaving campus. Finally, Layla looked at me, her eyes filled with something like regret. Then she turned to Adrian, took his face in her hands and kissed him. Not a quick peck, but a deep, deliberate kiss that seemed to last forever. When they broke apart, she didn't look at me again. She didn't have to. The message was clear. I walked away, my vision blurring. Behind me, I heard Adrian laugh, triumphant. That was the beginning of the end of us. I didn't know then that worse betrayal was yet to come. Betrayal that would leave scars that wouldn't fade, even after 10 years. After Layla chose Adrian, we became strangers who shared classrooms. I buried myself in academics, channeling my hurt into achievement. For the first time in our academic careers, I surpassed Layla, claiming the top spot while her grades continued their downward spiral. I tried not to care about her anymore. I deleted her from my social media, avoided the places I knew she frequented with Adrian, and stayed late at the library to ensure our paths wouldn't cross. But Shanghai International Academy wasn't large enough to completely avoid someone, especially someone who had once been the center of your world. I would catch glimpses of her, laughing with Adrian in the courtyard, skipping classes, returning from lunch with her uniform slightly disheveled. Each sighting was a fresh wound. By the end of the semester, her academic decline had become the subject of staff meetings. I overheard my calculus teacher lamenting to another faculty member, Chen Layla was our star student, now she's barely passing, all because of that Joe boy. Her parents' concern escalated to desperation. One evening, Mrs. Chen called my mother in tears. Layla won't listen to us, she said. We've threatened to cut her off, to send her to boarding school. Nothing works. Please ask Marcus to try one more time. He's the only one who might get through to her. My mother relayed the request, her eyes full of sympathy. She knew how much Layla's rejection had hurt me. You don't have to do this, she said gently. I know. I sighed, already reaching for my jacket. But I will. The address Mrs. Chen provided wasn't in our neighborhood, or even in a respectable part of the city. It was in the old industrial district, where abandoned factories had been converted into underground clubs and questionable living spaces. I took a taxi, the driver giving me a concerned look when I stated my destination. You sure about this place, young man? He asked. Not safe for students. I'll be fine, I replied, though my stomach knotted with apprehension. The building was a former textile factory, its brick facade covered in graffiti. Music pulsed from within, heavy bass that I could feel through the sidewalk. A group of young men loitered by the entrance, smoking and eyeing me suspiciously as I approached. I was clearly out of place in my school uniform, but I walked past them with forced confidence, ignoring their snickers. Inside was chaos, flashing lights, deafening music, bodies pressed together in a haze of smoke and sweat. I scanned the crowd, squinting through the darkness. It seemed impossible that I would find Layla in this mass of people, but then I caught a flash of familiar movement, the particular way she tilted her head when listening intently. She was seated in a corner booth with Adrian and several older men I didn't recognize. Her appearance shocked me. Gone was her simple school uniform, replaced by a short leather skirt and fishnet stockings. Dark makeup rimmed her eyes, and her hair was styled in a way I'd never seen before. She was drinking something amber from a glass, laughing at something Adrian had said. For a moment, I almost turned around and left. This wasn't my Layla, the girl who quoted poetry and dreamed of Oxford. This was someone else entirely, but I'd promised her mother. I approached the table, ignoring the hostile stares from Adrian's friends. Layla, I said, my voice barely audible over the music. Can I talk to you? She looked up, surprise flickering across her face before her expression hardened. What are you doing here, Marcus? Your parents are worried. I glanced pointedly at the older men at the table. Can we speak privately? Adrian laughed, wrapping his arm possessively around Layla's shoulders. Look who it is, the golden boy, come to save the princess. His friends snickered. I ignored them, keeping my eyes on Layla. 5 minutes, I said. Please. Something in my voice must have reached her. She sighed, extricating herself from Adrian's embrace. Fine, 5 minutes. We moved to a slightly quieter area near the emergency exit. Even in the dim light, I could see the shadows under her eyes, the too thin quality of her face. She looked exhausted. Your mother called mine, I explained. They're at their wits' end, Layla. Your dad is talking about sending you to military school in Beijing. She scoffed. Let him try. Is this really what you want? I gestured to our surroundings. This place? These people? Don't judge what you don't understand, she snapped. Then help me understand, I pleaded. What happened to Oxford? To all our plans? Our plans, she repeated, a bitter edge to her voice. They were always your plans, Marcus. You needed Oxford. I just went along with it. The words hit me like a physical blow. That's not true. You were the one who started talking about Oxford when we were 12. Because it's what my parents expected. Her voice rose. Then she took a deep breath, visibly composing herself. Look, Adrian helps me see things differently. He understands that there's more to life than pleasing our parents and following the path laid out for us. And what about your future? I asked. The company you wanted to build? The difference you wanted to make? She looked away. Maybe I'll do those things. Maybe I won't. But right now, I'm living for myself, not for some distant future. I took a step closer, lowering my voice. I know you like Adrian. I'm not trying to come between you, but you don't have to throw everything else away. You can be with him and still maintain your grades, still go to Oxford. Christ, you sound like my father, she interrupted. Always so reasonable, so concerned about my best interests. Because I care about you, I said, frustration bleeding into my voice. Because I stopped myself, swallowing the words I'd never spoken aloud. But Layla heard them anyway. Her expression softened slightly. I know, Marcus. I've always known. Before I could respond, Adrian appeared beside us, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. Everything okay here? Fine, Layla said, her mask of indifference sliding back into place. Marcus was just leaving. Adrian looked at me, a slow, malicious smile spreading across his face. Actually, perfect timing. My friend Jin wants to talk to you. I glanced past him to see one of the men from the table approaching, a heavily tattooed individual with cold eyes and a scar across his jaw. This is Marcus Way, Adrian told the man. The one I mentioned. Jin looked me over with an expression that raised all my internal alarms. So you're the competition, he said, his voice deceptively casual. I'm not competing for anything, I replied, taking a step back. I was just leaving. Don't be rude, Adrian said, gripping my shoulder with surprising strength. Jin and his friends want to get to know you better. I looked to Layla, whose face had gone pale. Adrian, don't, she said quietly. This isn't necessary. It's just a friendly chat, Adrian insisted, though his eyes were anything but friendly. Outside, where it's quieter. Two more men appeared behind Jin, and suddenly I realized the gravity of my situation. These weren't just Adrian's sketchy friends. They were something far more dangerous. Layla, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I think you should call your father. Shut up, Adrian hissed, his fingers digging painfully into my shoulder. You're coming with us, nice and quiet. I could have shouted for help, could have made a scene, but the club was too loud, too chaotic, and looking at the men surrounding me, I wasn't sure anyone would intervene. Let's go, Jin said, and I felt something hard press against my side, the unmistakable shape of a gun. My heart hammered against my ribs as they led me through the emergency exit and into the alley behind the club. Layla followed, her face a mask of anxiety. Adrian, please, she said, as the door clanged shut behind us, cutting off most of the noise from the club. This is insane. Let him go. Too late for that, Jin said coldly. Your boyfriend has been running his mouth about Wei here, says he's disrespecting you, causing problems. That's not true, Layla protested. Marcus hasn't done anything. Adrian pulled her against him roughly. He's always watching you, always trying to get you alone. It's pathetic. A black van was parked at the end of the alley. The sight of it sent ice through my veins. Get in, Jin ordered, pushing me forward. I looked at Layla one last time, silently pleading. Her eyes were wide with fear, but she remained frozen in Adrian's grip. They shoved me into the van, and to my surprise, pushed Adrian and Layla in after me. The door slammed shut, and we were plunged into darkness. What the hell? Adrian demanded. This wasn't the plan. Jin's laugh was chilling. Change your plans. My boss wants to talk to all of you. The van lurched forward, speeding through the late-night streets of Shanghai. Nobody spoke. I could hear Layla's rapid breathing beside me, could feel the tension radiating from Adrian's body. After what seemed like hours but was probably only 20 minutes, the van stopped. The door slid open, revealing an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Out, Jin commanded. Inside the warehouse, they separated us. I was tied to a chair in what had once been an office, while Adrian and Layla were taken elsewhere. I could hear shouting, then what sounded like blows landing, followed by Adrian's pained cries. Jin entered the office, cracking his knuckles. Your turn now, he said. Boss wants to make an example of Joe's friends. I'm not his friend, I said desperately. I barely know him. Not what we heard. Jin circled my chair slowly. Heard you're all tangled up with that girl of his, the one whose family has all that money. Understanding dawned. This wasn't about me at all. It was about Layla. These men saw her as a potential payday. Her parents will pay, I said quickly. If you're looking for ransom, her family has money. Just don't hurt her. Jin laughed. Smart boy. But we're way ahead of you on that. First, though, we need to discipline Joe. He's been stepping on toes that aren't his to step on. He left the room and I strained against my bonds, the rope cutting into my wrists. It was useless. The knots were too tight, the chair too sturdy. Hours passed. I drifted in and out of consciousness, jolted awake occasionally by distant sounds, raised voices, something heavy being dragged across concrete. Then the door opened, and Layla slipped in. Her face was tear-streaked, her lips split, but her eyes were clear and focused. "Marcus," she whispered, rushing to my side. "Thank God you're alive." "Where's Adrian?" I asked as she worked to untie me. "Being questioned by their boss." Her fingers fumbled with the knots. "Jin left to join them. This is our chance." The ropes finally loosened, and I stood on shaky legs. "We need to find a phone. Call the police." "There's a guard by the main door with a phone, but he's armed." She peered out into the hallway. "I found a side exit that seems unguarded. It's locked, but I think I can pick it. I just need something metal." Despite everything, I almost smiled. Layla had always been good with locks and puzzles, disassembling anything mechanical she could get her hands on since childhood. We crept through the darkened warehouse, pausing at every shadow. The side door Layla had mentioned was indeed padlocked, but the hasp was old and rusted. "Give me your belt buckle," she whispered. I handed it over, watching as she bent the metal into a makeshift tool and began working on the lock with remarkable precision. After several tense minutes, there was a click and the padlock opened. "We're getting out of here," she said, relief flooding her voice. "Together." Just then we heard footsteps approaching, heavy and purposeful. "They're coming," I whispered, panic rising in my throat. Layla stiffened, her eyes darting between the approaching sounds and the now unlocked door. For a split second our gazes met, and I saw something in her expression I couldn't immediately identify. Fear, yes, but also calculation. Then Adrian appeared at the end of the hallway, his face bloody, but his eyes wild with relief when he spotted Layla. "Layla!" he called out hoarsely. "Run!" Behind him, Jin and two others rounded the corner, shouting when they saw us by the open door. Time seemed to slow in that moment. I reached for Layla's hand, ready to pull her through the door with me, but she was already moving, toward Adrian. "Layla?" I called, confused. She glanced back at me, her expression unreadable in the dim light. Then she grabbed Adrian's arm and yanked him toward the exit. "Go!" she shouted at me. But instead of following, she pulled Adrian through the doorway and, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, slammed it shut behind them. I lunged for the handle, but it was too late. The sound of the padlock clicking into place from the outside was unmistakable. Through the small, grimy window in the door, I saw Layla's face for just a second, pale, shocked, almost as if she couldn't believe what she had just done. Then she and Adrian were gone, disappearing into the night, and I was left behind, facing Jin and his men alone. "Well, well," Jin said, his smile revealing gold teeth. "Looks like your friends abandoned you. Not very loyal, are they?" I backed away until I hit the wall, my mind reeling from Layla's betrayal. She had saved herself and Adrian, leaving me to whatever fate these men had planned. Jin nodded to his companions. "Teach him what happens to people who associate with trash like Joe." The first blow knocked me to the ground. The second cracked something in my chest. I curled into a ball, trying to protect my head as kicks and punches rained down. Through the haze of pain, one thought kept circling. Layla had chosen Adrian over me again, but this time, the price of her choice would be paid in blood, mine. I spent the afternoon wandering the city, unable to shake the morning's encounter with Layla. Her words kept replaying in my mind. "I didn't go to Oxford. I've been looking for you for 10 years. I regret leaving you so much." Was it true? Had she really spent a decade searching for me, carrying the weight of what she'd done? Part of me wanted to believe her, but another part, the part scarred by fire and betrayal, remained skeptical. By evening, I was mentally exhausted. I returned to the hotel, hoping to lose myself in work, but found Vanessa waiting in the lobby, concern written on her face. "There you are," she said, approaching me. "I've been calling you all afternoon." I pulled out my phone, noticing for the first time that it was dead. "Sorry, battery died." "Are you okay? You've been off since the gala last night, and then you disappeared all day." "I'm fine," I said automatically, the lie familiar on my tongue. "Just needed to clear my head before tomorrow's meetings." Vanessa studied me for a moment, clearly not believing me but kind enough not to push. "Well, if you're up for it, there's a dinner with potential investors tonight. Nothing formal, just networking." The thought of making small talk with strangers was exhausting, but I nodded anyway. "Give me an hour to shower and change." In my room, I stood under the hot water for a long time, letting it wash away the day's tension. My leg throbbed dully, a familiar ache that intensified whenever I pushed myself too hard. The doctors had warned me about this. The pain would always be there, a permanent reminder of that night. As I dressed, my phone buzzed with an incoming text from an unknown local number. "It's Layla. I understand if you never want to see me again, but if you're willing to talk, I'll be at the Jade Garden restaurant at 9 p.m. No pressure, just an open invitation. I stared at the message, conflicting emotions churning inside me. Part of me wanted to delete it, to block her number, and continue as if our paths had never crossed again. But another part, a part I'd thought long dead, was curious. Not just about Layla, but about what had happened after I left Shanghai, about the aftermath of that night that had changed everything. I finished dressing and joined Vanessa in the hotel lobby. She'd changed into a simple black dress, elegant but understated. "Ready?" she asked, offering a gentle smile. "As I'll ever be," I replied, trying to match her lightness. The investor dinner was at an upscale restaurant in the financial district, not far from the Chen Corporation headquarters. As we mingled with potential partners, I found my mind constantly drifting to Layla's text. By 8:30, I knew I couldn't ignore it. "Vanessa," I said during a lull in conversation, "something's come up. An old acquaintance wants to meet. Do you mind handling the rest of the evening?" She gave me a searching look, then nodded. "Of course. But Marcus?" She hesitated. "Be careful. Whatever history you have with Layla Chen, and I know there's more to it than you're saying, just remember you don't owe her anything." I was surprised by her perceptiveness. "How did you—" "I'm paid to read people," she said with a small smile. "It wasn't hard to connect the dots after this morning's meeting. The tension between you two was obvious." I nodded, grateful for her understanding. "I'll see you back at the hotel." The Jade Garden was a small, exclusive restaurant tucked away in the old French concession, housed in a restored colonial mansion. It was the kind of place that didn't advertise, relying instead on word of mouth among Shanghai's elite. As the taxi pulled up to the entrance, I felt a wave of apprehension. Was I making a mistake by coming here? Reopening old wounds that had taken years to heal? But I was already here, and some part of me needed answers, needed to understand what had happened in the aftermath of that night, how it had shaped Layla just as it had shaped me. The maitre d' led me to a private dining room at the back of the restaurant. Layla was already seated, nursing a glass of red wine. She looked up when I entered, surprise and relief washing over her face. "You came," she said softly, rising to her feet. I remained standing just inside the doorway. "I almost didn't." She nodded, understanding. "Thank you for giving me a chance. Please sit." I took the seat across from her, maintaining the maximum distance the small table would allow. Up close, in the warm lighting of the restaurant, she looked more vulnerable than she had that morning. The carefully constructed facade of the successful businesswoman momentarily set aside. "I ordered some appetizers," she said, gesturing to the spread on the table. "I remembered you liked the soup dumplings here." I glanced at the steamer basket, surprised. "You remembered my favorite restaurant after 10 years? A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "I remember everything about you, Marcus." I didn't know how to respond to that, so I changed the subject. "You said you wanted to talk, so talk." Layla took a deep breath as if gathering her thoughts. "I want to tell you what happened after you left. Not to excuse what I did, nothing can excuse that, but so you understand." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. "After that night," she began, her voice steady but quiet, "when they took you to the hospital, I was devastated. I tried to see you every day, but your parents wouldn't let me pass the door. I can't blame them. I wouldn't have let me see you either, after what I did." She took a sip of wine, her hand trembling slightly. "When I found out you and your family had left the country, I was frantic. I went to your house, but it was already empty. I called everyone we knew, but no one had any information, or if they did, they wouldn't share it with me. My parents wanted a clean break," I said. "For all of us." "I understand why," she acknowledged, "but I couldn't accept it. I hired private investigators, reached out to relatives, friends of friends, anyone who might know where you'd gone. For years, there was nothing." I frowned, trying to reconcile this with my own memories of that time. "If you were so desperate to find me, why didn't you just ask your parents? They knew we went to Canada. Your father was helping fund my rehabilitation." Layla's eyes widened in genuine shock. "What? No, that's impossible. My parents cut all ties with your family after the incident. My father blamed me for what happened to you, said I disgraced our family name." I sat back, stunned. "That's not true. Your family was sending money for my medical care. I saw the transfers." She shook her head, confusion clear on her face. "Marcus, I swear to you, my parents never mentioned anything about supporting your recovery. In fact, they forbade me from trying to contact you, said I'd done enough damage." We stared at each other across the table, both trying to process this new information. If Layla was telling the truth, and her surprise seemed genuine, then there was a piece of the puzzle missing. So what happened then? I asked, trying to make sense of it all. After you couldn't find me. Layla collected herself, continuing her story. I was a mess. I stopped eating, stopped sleeping. My parents were terrified I was going to have a complete breakdown. They sent me to stay with my aunt in Hong Kong for a while, hoping a change of scenery would help. She gave a humorless laugh. It didn't. I carried what I'd done everywhere I went. Eventually, I came back to Shanghai, tried to pick up the pieces. I enrolled at Fudan University instead of going to Oxford. Couldn't bear the thought of being there without you, of living our dream alone. Is that really why? I asked skeptically. Or was it because your parents wouldn't let you go abroad after what happened? She met my gaze directly. They wanted me to go to Oxford more than ever, to get away from the scandal, to make a fresh start. I was the one who refused. I hadn't expected that. In my mind, Layla had simply moved on with her life, pursuing the future we'd once planned together, unburdened by what she'd done to me. What about Adrian? I asked, the name still bitter on my tongue. Layla's expression hardened. I broke up with him the night of the warehouse. When I realized what we'd done, what I'd done, I couldn't stand the sight of him. He kept trying to contact me, but I blocked him everywhere. Last I heard, he was arrested for drug trafficking about 5 years ago. She took another sip of wine, her hand steadier now. I focused on my studies, graduated top of my class, started working for my father's company right away. Threw myself into work because it was the only thing that could distract me from the guilt. And now you're CEO, I observed. Not by choice, she said softly. My father had a stroke 4 years ago. He's better now, but he can't handle the stress of running the company anymore. I stepped in because there was no one else. I studied her across the table, this woman who had once been the center of my world, who had then become the focus of my hatred. She looked tired, I realized. Behind the designer clothes and perfect makeup was a woman carrying a burden almost as heavy as my own. Why are you telling me all this? I asked. Because I want you to know that I never forgot what I did to you. Never stopped regretting it. Never stopped looking for you. She leaned forward, her eyes intense. And because I want you to know that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make amends. If that means stepping down from the company so you don't have to deal with me during our business partnership, I'll do it. If it means selling my shares and disappearing from your life entirely, I'll do that too. I was stunned by the offer. You'd give up your family's company? Just like that? It's not just like that, she said, her voice breaking slightly. It's because I've spent 10 years living with what I did to you. Because every success I've had has been shadowed by knowing it came at your expense. Because when I saw you across that ballroom last night, it was like all the walls I'd built around my guilt came crashing down at once. I sat in silence, absorbing her words. The waiter approached with our main courses, and we both sat back, the intensity of the moment broken. He served the food with practiced efficiency, then disappeared again, leaving us alone. I don't want you to step down, I said finally, or sell your shares. That won't change anything that happened. Then what do you want, Marcus? She asked softly. Tell me, and if it's in my power, I'll do it. What did I want? Revenge? I'd fantasized about it over the years, imagined scenarios where Layla would suffer as I had suffered. But sitting across from her now, seeing the toll our shared past had taken on her, those fantasies felt hollow. Forgiveness? I wasn't sure I could give that, not completely. Some wounds went too deep. I want to understand, I said finally. I want to know why you did it. Not just the general fear and panic. I want to know what was going through your mind in that exact moment when you left me behind. Layla's face paled, and for a moment I thought she might refuse to answer. But then she nodded, accepting the question as a fair one. When we found that side door, when I managed to unlock it, I was terrified, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. All I could think about was getting out, getting away from those men. Adrian was pulling at me, urging me to run, and I was about to grab your hand, to make sure you were coming too. She paused, visibly struggling with the memory. Then we heard Jin and the others coming. Adrian yanked me through the door and I just froze. For a split second I was outside, and you were still inside, and I could hear them getting closer. Adrian was pulling me away, saying we had to run, that there was no time. Her eyes filled with tears. I knew if I went back for you, we might all get caught. I told myself there was another exit you could find, that you'd get out too. It was a lie, of course. I knew it even as I thought it, but it let me do what I did next. Which was to lock the door, I said, my voice flat. She nodded, a tear spilling down her cheek. Adrian did it, actually. But I let him. I could have stopped him, could have shouted a warning to you, but I didn't. I let him lock it, and then I ran with him. She wiped at her tears, but they kept coming. The moment we were away from the warehouse, I knew what I'd done. The full horror of it hit me, and I started screaming at Adrian, demanding he take me back. He refused. We fought, physically fought. I managed to get away from him long enough to call my father, to tell him where you were. This part I hadn't known. You called for help? Yes, she said, meeting my gaze through her tears. But it was too late. By the time they found you, the fire had already started. You were barely alive. I sat back, processing this new information. It didn't change what had happened, didn't erase the years of pain and rehabilitation, the permanent damage to my leg, but it did alter my understanding of that night, of Layla's role in it. I've relived that moment every day for 10 years, she continued, her voice stronger now. Every day I ask myself why I didn't reach back for you, why I didn't resist when Adrian locked that door. And the truth is, I was a coward. I chose my own safety over yours, and I've been paying for that choice ever since. We sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of the past heavy between us. Then, almost without conscious thought, I found myself reaching across the table. Not to touch her, but to push a box of tissues closer to her reach. It was a small gesture, insignificant really. But as she took one with a murmured, "Thank you," I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but perhaps the beginning of understanding. I don't know if I can ever forgive you completely, I said honestly. What happened that night? It changed everything. My body, my future, my ability to trust. All of it was altered forever. She nodded, accepting this without protest. But, I continued, surprising myself with what I was about to say, I don't think I hate you anymore, and that's something I never thought I'd say. A fresh tear slipped down her cheek. I don't deserve even that much from you. Maybe not, I agreed. But hatred is exhausting. I carried it for 10 years and I'm tired. She gave a small, sad smile. So where does that leave us? I considered the question. Where did it leave us? Not friends, certainly. The easy camaraderie of our childhood was gone forever. But perhaps not enemies either. I don't know, I admitted. I need time to process all of this. Of course, she said quickly. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. I stood, signaling the end of our conversation. Thank you for telling me the truth. About that night. About what happened after. She rose as well, maintaining a respectful distance. Thank you for listening. For giving me the chance to explain, even if it doesn't change anything. As I turned to leave, she called my name softly. Marcus? One more thing. I paused, looking back at her. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she said. I just want you to know that the girl who left you in that warehouse isn't who I am anymore. I'd like the chance to show you who I've become, if you're willing to see. I didn't know how to respond to that. Part of me was curious about the woman Layla had grown into, about the paths our lives had taken after they diverged so violently. But another part warned that getting close to her again would only bring more pain. Good night, Layla, I said finally, neither accepting nor rejecting her unspoken invitation. As I walked back to my hotel through the bustling streets of Shanghai, my mind was a whirlpool of conflicting emotions. Anger and resentment still simmered beneath the surface, but they were tempered now by something new, a tentative understanding, perhaps even the first fragile seeds of closure. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, whether Layla would remain part of my life or fade back into the past where she had resided for so long. But for the first time in 10 years, I felt as if a weight had been lifted, not completely, but enough to glimpse the possibility of a future not defined by that night in the warehouse. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something, and for now, that would have to be enough. I returned to my hotel that night with my mind whirling. Layla's confessions had shaken my understanding of the past decade. I had built walls around my memories of that night, constructed a narrative where Layla had callously abandoned me and moved on without a backward glance. Learning that she had searched for me all these years, that she had given up Oxford, that she had immediately tried to get help, it complicated the simple hatred I had nurtured for so long. Sleep eluded me. I stood by the window of my hotel room, watching the lights of Shanghai blink in the darkness. This city had once been my home, filled with possibilities and dreams. Now it felt like a place caught between my past and present, neither fully familiar nor completely foreign. My phone buzzed with a message from Vanessa. Meeting with Chen Court Board tomorrow at 10. You okay? I appreciated her concern. I'm fine. See you at breakfast, 8 a.m. I didn't mention my dinner with Layla. I wasn't ready to explain it to anyone, not even Vanessa, who had become one of the few people I truly trusted over the years. The next morning, Vanessa was already at a table in the hotel restaurant when I arrived, tablet in hand, reviewing notes for our meeting. You look terrible, she said bluntly, pushing a cup of coffee toward me. Rough night? Couldn't sleep, I admitted, grateful for the caffeine. She studied me for a moment. Did you meet with her? Layla Chen? I nodded, not surprised she had guessed. We had dinner, talked about the past. And? And it's complicated, I said with a sigh. 10 years of thinking someone is one thing, only to discover they might be something else entirely. Vanessa nodded, not pushing for details. Just remember why we're here. The Chen Corporation deal could transform our company. Don't let personal history interfere with that. I won't, I assured her, though I wasn't entirely convinced myself. The meeting at Chen Corporation went smoothly. Layla maintained a professional distance, her only acknowledgement of our dinner a brief nod when I entered the boardroom. The board members were impressed with our proposal, asking insightful questions that showed genuine interest. By the end, it was clear we were on track to secure the partnership. We'll have the contracts drawn up by the end of the week, Mr. Zhao, the finance director, said as the meeting concluded. Ms. Chen speaks very highly of your work, Mr. Wei. I glanced at Layla, who met my gaze steadily. The Wei Group's reputation precedes them, she said smoothly. We're looking forward to a productive partnership. As we gathered our materials, Layla approached. My assistant has arranged a car to take you both to lunch at the Golden Pavilion. Several of our key executives will be joining you to discuss implementation details. Thank you, Vanessa replied when I remained silent. That sounds perfect. Layla hesitated, then added in a lower voice. Marcus, if you have a moment before you leave today, I'd like to show you something. Curiosity got the better of me. What is it? Something I've kept for 10 years, she said simply. It won't take long. After lunch, a business affair where the conversation stayed firmly on logistics and timelines, Vanessa headed back to the hotel to prepare for our next meeting. I returned to the Chen Corporation building alone, my curiosity mingled with apprehension. Layla was waiting in the lobby. Thank you for coming, she said. We'll go to my office. The top floor of the building housed the executive offices, with Layla's occupying the prime corner position. It was tastefully decorated in shades of gray and blue, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the Shanghai skyline. Nice office, I commented, trying to keep my tone neutral. It was my father's, she said, moving behind her desk. I haven't changed much since I took over. She opened a drawer and removed a small wooden box, similar to the one I kept hidden in my own closet back in Vancouver. For a moment, she just held it, her expression unreadable. After you left Shanghai, she began. After I realized you were gone and I couldn't find you, I started collecting everything I could that reminded me of you. Articles when your name appeared in business publications, photographs from school that had us both in them. It was my way of keeping you in my life, even though you were gone. She placed the box on the desk and opened it. Inside were newspaper clippings, photographs, and what looked like letters.